Okay.
Okay, guys. So thank you for coming to listen for the compliance in medical devices. So first of all, I would like to tell you why I decided to present this topic. The thing is that I never ever had similar project in compliance for medical devices, though I used to work in healthcare for a long time. And the thing is that medical device is a little bit different because compliance there is very tough. That's first. And the second thing that we are growing and the part of medical device softwares is getting bigger and bigger. And more companies involved in there and starting to understand what to do there. So the thing is that in today's world, we can easily outsource everything. We can outsource manufacturing to the country where it's cheaper to manufacture, like China or India. We can also outsource writing code somewhere, for example, to Ukraine. But medical device manufacturers never ever are eligible to outsource their liability. So the liability is always the responsibility of the manufacturer because we are talking about the people's life. And here there's no excuse. So if something wrong is happening with the medical device, the manufacturer is liable and liable with the serious consequences. So this is the main principle we have to keep in the mind. And the thing is that now the software which is coded for medical device becoming a medical device. So we have a case where we have a software as a medical device, and this is a very important definition. So I would propose to go to our agenda. So we briefly go through the regulation. We'll look what it is and how it's organized. We will see who are the bodies and who are those who are requiring us to follow the registration. We will consider what type of software we are producing. Very briefly, we're going through the standard of medical device life cycle. And at the end, I would like to share with you my personal thinking how to organize work as a compliance manager, compliance officer at the project. And then we'll have question and answers. Okay, so regarding the compliance, so it's not only about filling the documents. I thought it's this boring documents which could be very long, but the thing is that filling the documents it's not what they're expecting from us. The authorities they expect not only filling those regulated so-called INSTs and SOPs, they require that the company which is producing the software would have a quality system. And this is very important because none of us do not have a certified quality system. And at the end, it could be a problem which have to be managed in some way because to invest in quality system millions of dollars, which could be this figure, it's not possible for every company, and you have to find some kind of solution. For my project, we found a solution. So I used to work for Embody project, and we had associated company called Zimmer Biomet, which then which already had this quality management system in place. And our experience and our approach to this was to follow everything what was recommended by this Zimmer Biomet company and to comply with every requirement they were sending to us. So at the end, I tried to understand what is compliance. So, and I draw this diagram. I actually wouldn't like to go in details because we have tens of norms documents, which are really really big, which are really complicated. But the main thing is to understand why you should use what document, and I try to separate them. So the red circles, they specify specific medical device standards. The triangle, it's general quality process standards, and the blue rectangular is the general software process standards. So there are some connections between these norms, which are referring one to each, and you also should keep in mind that the version, like you see the year in each document, they're changing very fast, so you should be keep your eye on the updates, which are mostly on the websites. So who are these medical device regulators? If you are working for the USA market, then the main regulator is FDA, it's Food and Drug Association. It's a very solid organization which regulates everything regarding the medical devices. Not limited to the medical devices. They regulate like all the things related to the health. Talking about Europe, we are talking about CE mark. Japan has MHW. So, and other requirements which we would not consider in this presentation, because every country has its own regulations. So, talking about the FDA, we have two kinds of certification, which one of the main difference between them is that if we are talking about some medical device which already exists, which already been certified, it's easy. It's 510K. It's called 510K, and this is actually lightened procedure to follow. And the most difficult is PMA, so-called PMA, pre-market approval, which means that you have to go full path from the beginning to the end. And the thing is, with these responsibilities, is that not only your job position allows you to sign documents. No, you have, in order to have the right to sign the document, it's not only the job position, it's number of required training which are regulated by FDA. You have to pass this training, to pass the test, make it successful, and only after that you have the right to sign these regulated documents. So as you see, in year 2016, FDA approved 3,000 510 devices. It means we have something similar on the market, and only 47 PMA. Right, talking about CA, it's very similar. So it's very important when we're talking about the medical device that we follow the right terms. So what we call medical device, and what is the definition? So the definition is here: it's instrument, apparatus, implement, a machine, contrivance, implant, in vitro reagent, or other similar or related article. So it means that if you're talking about gloves, it can be medical device, of course, and we are talking about the cardio stimulator, which is also a medical device. How can we classify them? And for this, we have a very simple classification. The classification is mainly based on the risk factor. If you are talking about the medical gloves, it's the lowest risk, I think. So it is class 1. And if you're talking about the defibrillator, for example, or surgical device, some kind of surgical devices, this is a high risk. So it's now class number 3. So this is the first classification, which is very important. And the next thing is what is actually important is intended use. And with the intended use, you always have to prove that you can use your medical device according to your intended use. If it doesn't happen, then you are subject to different penalties and in different inconveniences for your business and for your medical device. So, intended use is a document that is a section of the document which is proposed in most of the important documents we are talking. We are talking about the SRS, software requirement specification, system requirement specification, design development plan. I will show you the number of documents and how they live actually on the next slides. Right, so why software is so tough to certify? It's even tough than to certify the hardware. And the thing is that the software can have, according to the FDA, the software can have uncontrolled access from any other source, like from the internet, from somewhere else. And if hardware is something when we can say at least mechanically or visually determined, then it is software. I don't see the software actually. This is the main risk they consider for the software, and especially it is very important when we consider another two types of software. So software can be medical device software. Software can be a non-device software that is part of. And in our case, for our project, we had software as a medical device, and that made us really say overloaded with the documentation. And the risky thing in terms of project is that all your efforts, I mean all your coding efforts, testing effort, the efforts of business analysts and functional business analysts, so all your efforts could be multiplied by 0 if you don't have all this documentation. It means that if you can produce the perfect product which is functionally working and functionally is marvelous and excellent, but if your documents are not signed and not approved by FDA, then the cost of this software is 0. So we have to always to keep this in mind, that this is crucial to follow these requirements. So I only briefly go, because we don't have much time, I only briefly go through this standard, which is only one from those which I've shown you on the map. And the thing is that actually you shouldn't be frightened of this standard, because you as a manufacturer, you know your device better than someone else, and if you can prove that especially the risks, and if you could explain the level of risks in your document that it's appropriate, then it is accepted. But you should remember that all these documents which I am talking about, they have their own life cycle. And if you go, I missed a couple slides. I just would like to show I prepared this slide in order to understand. Do you see it? Because the letters are small here. Do you see it? Okay. So
yeah, looks fine.
On the left column, you see the number of the name of the document, like risk management report, design and development plan, user requirement specification, system requirement specification. So all these documents which have to be prepared for a software as a medical device. And on the rows you see the stages. So this is the requirements analysis stage, this is design stage, implementation, integration test, design transfer to production, and maintenance. And for most of the documents, they are actually updated during each phase. For example, risk management report, which is very important, it has to be, by saying updated, I mean that someone have to sign the every revision of these documents. If you have one revision on the requirement stage, then at the design stage we have the second revision. So for this document we will have at least 6 revisions, maybe more, if the changes will be significant. And this shows you how you should develop your attitude to all this documentation, because your audit during your production phase could be everywhere here. So the auditor can come here during the design, during the implementation, during the transfer, and so on. So this is important to keep your fingers on the pulse. Right, and going, don't see if we have much time. It seems. Okay, I probably skip this standard because we are nearly for the time to question and answer. But what I would like to underline now is my personal conclusions from my involvement during the project. The first one I already told, that your efforts cost nothing if you're not following the compliance and regulatory. And this is important because I had experience with the compliance in automotive and in banking, and in there you can sometimes postpone. You can, for example, in banking, the example of compliance could be a Basel Convention, which requires the banks follow some security procedure. But in banking, it's not so tough, and it could be so postponed with a little bit later period. But that does not happen in medical device, believe me. Okay, next thing, which is very important, that you're not subject matter expert in everything which is related to your medical device. You couldn't, you as a compliance officer or compliance manager, you couldn't know all the details. So it's very important that you involve all your team members to support your compliance activities. It's very important that every member of your team knows that his contribution is very important for preparation of these documents. Third thing is your network as a compliance manager, because something you couldn't find in the internet, and you should share your experience with other compliance managers. And how it happens to me, we had a conference, and during the conference I found here in Ukraine, I found a lot of people who are doing the same job. We shared our contacts, we shared our how you do this job. Of course, it's very important that you don't have to name your customer. This is another thing. So, but main principles how you manage your problem is also important, and I would say that some of my knowledge came to me from my compliance network. Next thing is that you could make a mistake if you following the regulation which is out to date. So you should always before checking something, because doing something in compliance, you should be 100% sure that you are doing with the latest revision, not the year 2007 or 8. Right, and next thing is training. You should always train yourself and check that you have a minimum list of training passed, and it should be confirmed if you have some auditor to check, because they could ask you why you're signing the document based on what. And the last thing, and it was actually the first thing I started, that you should, if you are a manufacturer and if you are the owner of your software, as a medical device, this is only your responsibility to comply with all the regulations which are applied. So you couldn't outsource it somewhere else. Well, I think time is approaching, so if you have any questions, suggestions, please, I would be happy to.
Well, I've got one general question. What looks weird to me, although I didn't work on medical projects, so I'm not sure, probably it's a common practice, but don't they, I mean the client, don't they have compliance officers on their side? Yeah, and if they do, how do you like split your job? What's on BA side? What's on their side? Because just for me, it looks like another business constraint that business is aware of, that business communicates to us, and we should bear it in mind. But I see that you probably dig much deeper than that. So how did this responsibility, how was it spread?
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
I will tell you how it was our project. We had actually two bodies involved in compliance. One was the consultant, which actually his job was to translate general document provided from FDA into the say requirements, legal requirements, I would call them. And our job was to fulfill these legal requirements with the contents. For example, with this standard 62314, he translated this to the Excel sheet where we had lines with questions, and we as our Ukrainian team, or not, as a data art team, we had to put context for these documents. From other side, we have, I mentioned this company, Zimmer Biomet, who they really had not only one person in compliance, they have a special department which was specializing on compliance, and the benefit of cooperation with them was that we didn't develop the forms our own. We've been given these forms from their side, and we were assured that these forms are compliant to the latest document at this time. So using these two bodies made us success in terms of compliance.
Okay, so just to confirm that I got it correctly, they asked questions, then you picked up the document, the laws, and tried to answer those questions based on your best understanding of the legislation. Is that correct?
Yes, and this process was iterated. So when I fill in the document, then I circulate this document over to them and ask for their say validation of this. If they're okay with that. So, and sometimes we had many iterations of this. So sometimes our documentation wasn't so perfect, and the maybe on one of the first stage it was rough, and then on the second stage it became better. But this is normal. This is acceptable.
Okay, I see. Thanks. So, more questions, please.
Guys, is someone was involved in a healthcare project who are now on the call?
Yes, I've been involved, but it was a UK project, and also we had some certification. But in our case, we so NHS provided us test scripts, and we need. So the project was about redesigning of self-service system for UK, and we have the whole list of test scripts, but fortunately we should done only less than half of this test. It took a great amount of time, and it was really challenging. And in our case, also data team was involved in this process, because on the customer side they don't have such specialists, and it was really challenging.
Yeah, and also, Sasha, you're right. You mentioned that these projects in compliance, they usually quite very intensive. So someone from the guys who were on the pre-sale, they told me that when they're signing the contract with the customer, there was some kind of sentence, other documents, and these other documents costed hundreds of hours. So you should be very proactive in pre-sale at the stage of pre-sale, that you should really specify what documents you have to provide the customer, otherwise you will do it for free. So this is important for salespeople.
Yeah.
So any other questions? Okay, if you don't have any questions, I would like to thank you for listening in this presentation, and I hope that one day, maybe if you have a question, you can always contact me online, offline, and what I know, I can help you if you have such a situation.
Okay, thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot. Thank you, Sasha. I'm sharing the link for the feedback, so please provide your feedback on this speech. I think Sasha could benefit from it a lot.
Yeah, really.
Okay, so thanks a lot.
Thank
See you
you.
next Monday.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.